Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. Well, a lot going on in the world, man. I haven't had a chance. It just dropped. I was almost going to cancel this podcast to watch the Joe Rogan Donald Trump interview. Let's, I think, talk about the elephant in the room, which is the elephant in the room, which is no single incident or issue, but quite literally this moment in time. Is it just me? I know it can't just be me. And the reason I know it can't just be me is that if I'm feeling it all the way here in the Talamanca Mountains, just with whatever residual vibration I get from my media, you know, my internet and the social media and the media proper and everything, well, let me just see if I can bump up this gain a little bit. Yeah. Then if I feel it here, I can fairly well guarantee myself that it's off the charts where you guys are, right? I mean, this moment just feels like time has frozen. I've been feeling this creep up on me all week, but which is surprising because I got a lot of work done this week. By the way, just for your edification, your education, if I miss a podcast here and there, I'm bogged down with work. Okay, so I took on. I have fairly busy time now at my job, and then I took on a side contract, and then I have some other obligations to get finished. A writer's work is never done, I suppose. Um, and so that's why you might not see me one night, or I might take 2-3 days off here and there. But I don't often do it. The last time I did it was for the long fast, where it was on the THC oil, and I wouldn't have made any sense podcasting anyways. I mean, that stuff's. I mean, that is a medical regimen to undertake once or twice a year. I usually do it for 14 days, 2 weeks solid. So it's a liquid fast. I drink lemon water, and I don't eat any food, and then I eat a little bit of an oil that is distilled from an entire marijuana plant, the roots, the leaves, the bud, everything. Some of you might know it as Rick Simpson oil, but I do that a couple times a year. I don't advocate using marijuana, as you know. I think that you should live your life as clean as possible, right? Like, I mean, I got the vape going, and I'm clearly a caffeine addict. I mean, so I do have my addictions, but I don't think you should get into the inebriating stuff. That's just my opinion. I know many of you who listen to me are high all the time. I know it's an epidemic in North America and Western Europe now. Canada may be the very worst. I mean, pretty much everyone I know in Canada is stoned all the time, except maybe when they're working heavy machinery, or maybe when they're in the operating room, or maybe when they're doing a summation in court. But other than that, they're high all the time. I don't know how I got onto that segue. Yeah, I was talking about this moment in time that we seem to be in now, and holy spumoli, does this ever seem like something? I don't know what it seems like exactly, but it just literally feels frozen. Like the entire universe is saying, hey, dummy, take a moment and really feel this moment. I'm the dummy here. It's like my higher being, my higher intuition talking to me. It's like, you need to be aware of this moment, dummy. And it doesn't really say dummy. It's just the way I pantomime my inner voice, right? Um, And now tonight it just feels like, holy cow. It feels like that moment Jody Wilson described the first time I spoke to her. And she was talking about seeing a line of geese take off from a small waterway and freeze as they started their elevation to go up into the air. They froze right in the air, which is, of course, a supernatural event. It can happen, right, according to the rules down here. But it feels something like that, where, you know, I go outside, I look at the sky, and, you know, things are moving. The stars are up there. I see the clouds moving. I see the wind rustling the leaves in the tree around me. I feel the wind on me. I see my wife. She's not really aware of this pregnant moment I'm trying to describe. I think you have to be a North American to really get it. The rest of the world will get it afterwards, right? And she seems pretty unperturbed, but I just cannot get over this, folks. Just like the weight of this, you know, whatever it is, this, let me get that back on. The weight of this Friday, what is it, October 25th, the week before Halloween, actually. Next Thursday is Halloween. Did I ever tell you, folks, that I was conceived on October 31st? True story. I'm the only one of 3 children they know for sure, because my dad was traveling a lot with his work. So I was conceived about 9 p.m., October 31st, 1965, which is a really bizarre time for a human being to be conceived. Those of you who have read or who are reading The Stolen Child, I am in many ways the jack-o'-lantern, okay? And you're not going to get that if you don't read that book. That's my #1 suggestion. Of all the books I'm selling right now, The Stolen Child is the one you should read. Everybody should read that book, and you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it like a good HBO series. But yeah, the weight of this moment is just... And I can't believe the things I'm hearing, man. Like the stuff that these liberals are saying now. They're like, how did we all arrive at the same point? Where we believe that the person who's not our choice will destroy the country. How did we all arrive at this point? Is it like a foregone conclusion that the United States is going to be destroyed? If not geographically and literally, but then as an economic entity. You know, throughout the annals of warfare, there have always been, you know, battles, decisive battles we talk about. I think the Battle of Waterloo was a major turning point for Europe. Definitely changed the fortune of the French. Definitely changed the fortune of the Rothschild family. And it would be difficult to know you're living in a moment like that when you're living in that moment. It's some moments are so big, you can't really decode them or decrypt them until, you know, sometime later. And that seems to be the case with the moment we're living through now. Let me see if I can lay some language to what I'm trying to describe here. Like, why do I see this as such a pivotal moment? Well, #1, and look, there might not be a whole lot new in this podcast. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how much more I have to say before the election. I'll keep podcasting, but it might not have that cutting edge that you've gotten used to, and, you know, because I'm just in a holding pattern now. And this is my deference to the moment that we're living in and the weight of it and the severity of it. And it is a very, very severe moment we're living in. And the way, again, go back to how I feel it. I feel it almost like a weight pressing down on me. Not in a negative or oppressive way per se, but just to sort of slow me down and to get me to pay attention, really pay attention to what's going on. You know, you hear these stories about time slowing down all the time. You know, you hear them from people who went through intense experiences like car or motorcycle accidents, like time stood still, and, you know. And I think maybe it's just something that the human brain does, or our consciousness does while we're incarnate. When we're living through a moment that is more than we can process with our waking mind. And I think that this moment is in many ways more than I can process. And I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but I don't think it can really be understated. And here's another thing too. If I'm right on a lot of the things that I'm saying on the Talamanca Review, then I would imagine that this is a point of no return, not only for the United States, but for the whole world. It's almost like a second revolutionary war is needed in the United States to not just reset the United States, but to reset the world, I think is what's needed. Now remember, nothing that we may potentially go through, or some might suggest we're actually going through these things already, like mass death and famine and just heaps and heaps of bad luck. You know, remember that many countries have gone through this already, right? So, I mean, the worst thing we can imagine happening to us as North Americans has already happened in other jurisdictions and other places. It's certainly already happened in China. There's nothing that we can say about the future coming, if it doesn't go our way, that China has not lived through already. I mean, China literally decimated its past in the Cultural Revolution. You know, I've been all over that in the Talamanca Review here and there. I've never done, you know, a show per se about this, but I have been talked about it numerous times, you know, what happened in the Cultural Revolution. It's one of those morbid little topics that somebody making a study of darkness would poke around in, because it's got the fingerprints of darkness all over it, right? But just briefly to recap, nobody knows for sure how many people were killed in the Cultural Revolution. But I don't think it would be an overstatement or an understatement to throw a ballpark figure out like 100 million. That's 100 million human beings, right? Maybe more, right? China's really good at sort of keeping that stuff secret. Now, is it possible that this global system used China as a dry run to see how effective they could be at completely changing a society in one generation? Probably no society on Earth has changed more and more rapidly than China has changed in the last 100 years or so. Okay? No society has changed more than China. Right? They were one of those places that wasn't really looking forward. A lot of cultures will get comfortable, and invention and creativity will sort of wane a little bit. And you could I don't think that's quite happened in the West yet. Not when I see people like Elon Musk still out there doing his thing. And but China as a creative force, and creativity is a vital characteristic for a national spirit. Okay, a non-creative people are not really in communion with the divine. There's nothing wrong with invention. You could say it's a cousin to materialism, right? But no, you can be creative and inventive without necessarily being a materialist, materializing everything. I've been very creative and very inventive in the life I've chosen here, and I haven't really materialized a lot. You know, the house is the house, and it was built with the materials around me. Haven't really materialized a lot. Creativity is what solves problems. It's not necessarily an invention. It's because we think in such a material way now, creativity almost has become a synonym with materialism, you know, because if you're going to create something, it follows that you're going to materialize something, blah, 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 blah. That's the way it goes, right? So, but what worries me about the moment we live in now, well, first of all, I don't know if this human being 3.0, let's call the 20th century human being 2.0, and human being 1.0 is what we'll call everything from the crucifixion of Christ right up until the real heavy industrial revolution. And I would say I would have it really starting at the end of the 1800s, the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, where they got their systems in place and they started doing what they're doing. And then all the stuff that's creeping up on us now is all a product of what got implemented in the 20th century, including the medical regimen and the way we treat diseases and things like this. It all got brought to us in the 20th century. And it was all deliberate. Everything, this is another thing that I think a lot of people overlook, is how deliberate what happens in the evolution of this human race is. It may seem random. There may, you know, there always seems to be a story behind things, you know, like what are some of the great mythological stories from America the Great in the last 60, 70 years? Well, Microsoft and Apple would both be examples of that, right? Couple guys starting computer companies in their garages, but on the surface of that, just not true. Age, like news, if it's not something they want in the news. I'm not saying things don't happen and people don't lose their shit and exit stage left. They do. But I'm saying that 99.9% of the stuff that happens, especially if the media dwells on it or uses it as a source of emotional leverage for further coverage, you can be that can pretty much be your guarantee that the whole thing was planned, okay? If the time and the attention that the media gives to it. One of the reasons that I find the time we're living in now so interesting is I don't see any of the old fingerprints on the crime scene. Okay? Now, I do. I mean, Ole Demagogue? Ole, yeah, whatever his name is there, that Swedish guy who does great reporting on certain things. I recently heard him on a fairly big podcast, and he deconstructed the Trump assassination attempt. The one in Pennsylvania, not the one at the golf course in Florida. And I have to defer to Ole's work. There's no doubt that that was all choreographed as well. Okay? So I'm not saying that the Trump team is not using rabbits in hats and the same sort of propaganda, psychological operations, and shock and everything they can to win the election. They're certainly doing that. There's no doubt about that. And the left is doing what they do. And I mean, holy cow, man. Maybe I can just play a little bit of this because now they're really pouring it on. I saw this one generic thing where all of these celebrities are going on and on about what a critical moment in history it is. there we go again. Joe Rogan and yeah. Yeah. Israel has attacked Iran. Now I find the timing of that very suspect. I mean, why would they just not wait? I mean, we're less than 2 weeks out from the election. We are about 1, 8. We're 11 days out, 12 days out from the election. I want you to ask yourself, okay, because timing is really important when you're trying to figure out what's going on. I want you to ask yourself, what would possess Israel to attack Iran now? Why now? They know that Trump is their candidate, right? Or is he? Okay? Is it that we could be looking at a factionalized Jewish world now, where they're no longer operating in concert and there's a civil war in this world as well, the Jewish world, where Trump represents a certain, let's say, religious Jew or Zionist Jew, and American diaspora Jews who are definitely what I would call liberal or reform Jews, which would be the same thing almost as a Gentile to an Orthodox Jew, because if you're not living those rules, you're not a Jew. What I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to me. Why Israel would do this now? Why would they stress Kamala Harris and Joe Biden this way 12 days out from an election? Now, it's true Trump would not formally get into office until January 20th, but there would definitely be what we would call a Jesus, a thinning out period, if you will. You know, you got all these idiots out there, everybody doing their idiot thing, into idiotic things. You know, Leonardo DiCaprio coming out in favor of Kamala Harris because she's the only one taking climate change seriously. And then the fucking idiot. And you need to understand, these people in Hollywood, they're fucking idiots. Just because you can take direction and act and look like a competent homicide detective in a movie or a TV series doesn't mean you can open up a jar of peanut butter in real life. These people are fucking stupid. You have no idea, okay? Plus all the partying they do and all the stupid shit they get into when they're not working. It's not like these people are like scholars. It's not like these people are leading any kind of serious life when they're not doing the whole Hollywood thing, you know. It's oh, here he is. I just found him actually. Yeah, you got to hear this doofus.
And Milton devastated.
Oh yeah, this is a brilliant juxtaposition. Okay, let's play this.
Earlier this month, Hurricanes Helene and Milton devastated parts of Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. Families lost homes, livelihoods, and loved ones to some of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded. These storms have done an estimated $100 billion in damage, and make no mistake, these unnatural disasters were caused by climate change. Donald Trump continues to deny the facts. He continues to deny the science. He withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Accords and rolled back critical environmental protections. Now he's promised the oil and gas industry that he'll get rid of any regulation they want in exchange for $1 billion donation. Climate change is killing the earth and ruining our economy. We need a bold step forward to save our economy, our planet, and ourselves. That's why I'm voting for Kamala Harris. She helped lead the most significant climate action in U.S. history, including passing the Inflation Reduction Act. Under her leadership, we set ambitious targets for achieving net zero emissions by 2050 and building a green economy that not only creates jobs, but also helps save our planet. So check your registration at iwillvote.com and join me in voting for Kamala Harris on November 5th, because we cannot afford to go backwards.
What an asshole. What a complete asshole. And then you got the P. Diddy photo up there. I mean, I love that they're getting theirs. I mean, you can call it Schadenfreude, call it whatever you want, but, you know, fuck you, Hollywood. You've been fucking us over, mind fucking us for decades. Fuck you, okay? It really is the ultimate brothel, is what Hollywood is. You go in a normal person, you stay there too long, you're going to get turned out and you're going to be a whore. And by the way, by biblical definition, a prostitute is somebody who takes money to do anything. Okay? So I don't know how they got things done in the past, you know, I mean, neighbor helping neighbor or something like that when you're lose some sheep or something if you're a sheep herder, but basically the word means that your opinion is for hire, your integrity is for hire, your being is for hire, your body is for hire. This is what a whore is. And you can't really run a society with too many whores. Whores are very corrupting influences on a society. Now, there's a delicate balance. You can't really exist without them. Anybody will tell you that, okay? And I mean the literal whores and a certain portion of this kind of whoring that I'm talking about today. But when everybody's doing it, it just gets unbelievably stupid. So, I got to say also, I don't think that Donald Trump is looking too good these days. I mean, I just did watch the first couple minutes of the Joe Rogan interview, and he does have a bit of a lisp now. He's like talking like he's like aged, 2016, 2024, it was 8 years since he was a 70-year-old man. The last time he got into office, he's 78 now, right? That eighth decade is brutal, and I'm not trying to be an ageist, okay? Not trying to be an ageist at all, but when you get to your 80s, man, if you're still living and can get any quality of life out of your eighth decade, you're doing pretty well, because most people just start to get real broken up. And it's a lot of Netflix and tea and trips to the bathroom and complaining about your joints. These 16,000 Border Patrol officers endorsed Trump for president. You see, I don't really have anything tonight. I don't really have a normal sort of unified Talamanca review. Maybe I'll just do news and updates until after the election. But I mean, or maybe I should just recap my position a little bit, okay, so everybody knows where I'm coming from. I think everything is about the Third Temple of Solomon. I think it is the secret of secrets. I think the rise of this leftist nonsense and this transgenderism is also coming out of the Talmud and the Kabbalah. So it's also Jewish. The counterforce to it is largely Jewish. These are your conservative Jews like Ben Shapiro. But ask yourself this. For Israel to get anything done, it has to ride on somebody's back. Okay? It can't get across the river by itself. The scorpion and the frog story. Israel is the scorpion, and these other nations that have kept them alive throughout the centuries during the diaspora have been like the frog. Okay? Now America's the frog. But what I'm pointing out here is that everything that is going on has a single source for causality, for commencement and causality. Okay? The causal source of all of these things is the genuine, basically the container of Jewish thought, whether it be Hollywood or the rabbis or the religious and cultural and territorial ambitions of the temple crowd and the Zionists. Okay? And literally, there's nothing going on now in American politics, which is Western politics, which is not steered by Jewish influence now. Okay? You think Nancy Pelosi is thinking for herself? That's just another school of Jewish influence. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself if they're not all working together. Right? Because to manipulate free will, you have to give people choices. And choices come down to what? They come down to binaries, zeros or ones. Okay? And that's what they've done. And, I think that Trump is probably going to win this election. I think at this point the Democrats are afraid to win. I don't think they... there has been so much defrocking of the institutions that there's nothing that can be done here. Whether it be the FBI or Border Patrol, all these people getting paid and not doing their jobs, how can you go back to the Democrats? Right? Will the people that really matter respect them? Will the military take leadership from Kamala Harris? They hated Obama, and Obama hated them. Okay? Anyways, that's all I got for tonight. I'm just going to do short updates, and if I get a real humdinger on my mind, or if I decide to go on air late night and do a quick hour because I got something on my mind, I'll do it. But right now, I'm just holding my breath like everybody else. So I'm Bruce McDonald. This has been the Talaman.